Imagine a country where you can buy weed legally, tulips at the stand next door, cheese right in front, and you might even fall in love with a gorgeous blonde dressed all in orange. And 5 minutes later, with another one who's lying face down, sunbathing in just a bikini. Sounds perfect, right? But in the same country, there are lines of 500 people fighting over a one-bedroom apartment. A doctor who sends you home with just Tylenol, even when you know there's something wrong with your body. Daycare that costs as much as a compact car per month. And you know what's the craziest part? Most people who move there don't want to leave. This place is the Netherlands. And what I'm about to tell you here, no spoiled influencer usually shows you. Shall we? Number 1, this country shouldn't even exist. Let me tell you something nobody mentions when they talk about the Netherlands. This country shouldn't even be here, you know? No exaggeration. More than a quarter of Dutch territory is below sea level. If you took away the dikes, the dams, and the pumps that run 24 hours a day, part of the country would sink. Amsterdam would sink. Rotterdam would sink. A good part of the countryside would turn into the bottom of the ocean. Now imagine growing up knowing that. Since you were a kid, you learn that the ground you walk on only exists because generations before you fought with the sea. And if people stop maintaining the system, the sea takes back what belongs to it. That changes an entire mindset. Those windmills you see in every picture, they're not just for decoration, no way. They've been pumping water for centuries. Engineers from all over the world call this whole system the eighth wonder of the world. And you know what's even crazier? While they were fighting the ocean, these guys also invented the stock exchange, the microscope, and contributed to the development of Wi-Fi. Wild, right? Small territory, kinda underwater, huge impact on world history. There's a village called Gifhorn. There are no streets, none at all, 0 roads. You get around by boat or by bike. It's insanely beautiful, and you can't help but wonder how a delivery guy would drop off an order there. Spoiler, they don't deliver. There's the Wadden Sea up north, where at low tide you can walk from one island to another with the ocean at your ankles. It looks like CGI, but it's real. And then there's Rotterdam, destroyed by bombings in World War II and rebuilt as a playground for wild architecture. Tilted buildings, livable cubes, bridges that look like art. The rest of Europe rebuilt what they have. The Dutch thought, if we have to rebuild everything from scratch anyway, why not make the most of it? That's this country, pragmatic even in tragedy. But enough of the pretty parts. I'll only show the women in bikinis at the end, okay? Because when you actually try to live there, the story changes completely. Number 2, welcome to Bureaucracy. You did all your research, watched videos of Brazilians happily riding bikes in Amsterdam, joined a group called Living in the Netherlands, and left half of them 5 minutes later because people were already trying to sell you everything, sending a flood of spam. You made spreadsheets, gathered your documents, watched videos about visas, and even learned the difference between Holland and the Netherlands just to sound smart. And then you think, now I'm ready. But actually you're not, because the visa was just the tutorial. When you arrive in the Netherlands, that's when the real game begins, managing to exist legally. And that's when you find out about the so-called BSN. The BSN is kind of like a Brazilian CPF, except without it, you can't do absolutely anything. No BSN, no bank account, no renting, no health insurance, no subsidies, no daycare, no contracts. Without a BSN, you become an anxious tourist. And now comes the part that sounds like it was written by a drunk screenwriter. To get a BSN, you need a registered address. But to get a registered address, guess what? You need a BSN. Yup, exactly the face you just made. It's like asking your mom, "Mom, can I go in the pool?" And she answers, "Sure, but don't get wet." And the most absurd thing is that this paralyzes real immigrants for months. There are people arriving with degrees, savings, fluent English, and still getting stuck because officially they don't exist in the system yet. Then you find out the secret that nobody really talks about. The Netherlands works a lot better when you know someone. A friend lends you a temporary address, an acquaintance tips you off about a rental before it's even listed. An expat group saves your skin. If you have connections, you get through the maze in a few weeks. If you don't, you spend months paying full price for everything, while posting smiling photos on Instagram pretending you've achieved the European dream. And hold on, it gets even worse, because after the BSN comes bureaucracy's favorite part, proving that you deserve to live there. The Netherlands has several immigration routes: skilled worker, student, family reunification, and other names that sound like side quests in a European RPG. And each route has different rules, different deadlines, different documents, and a hidden catch just waiting for you to let your guard down for 2 seconds. A lot of people hire an immigration lawyer just to figure out which door to go through, because choosing the wrong route can turn a 3-month process into a 1.5 years of administrative suffering. And you know what's funny? Even though it's one of the most modern countries in the world, sometimes it feels like the system was designed by a mix of an engineer and a notary office clerk. Everything works, but with absolutely no intention of making your life easier. Oh, and there's one more surprise that almost nobody mentions before moving there. The Netherlands has a mandatory integration program for immigrants. It's not a suggestion, it's not a would be nice, it's really mandatory. You take tests, learn the language, culture, social rules, take part in activities. It's almost like an official tutorial on how to become at least a little bit Dutch without having a meltdown. And the funny thing is, everyone who finishes usually says the same thing. It was super helpful. The problem is, this all comes right when you're already tired, lost, cold, basically homeless, and trying to make sense of everything. And it's at this point that a lot of people notice something curious about living in the Netherlands. The country doesn't seem to test your intelligence. It seems to test your psychological endurance. Because the whole time it feels like the system is looking at you and asking, okay, but do you really want to stay here? 3, 500 people, 1 apartment. It's not a Coldplay concert line, it's not a federal civil service exam, it's a rental application in Amsterdam in 2023. Normal market situation, 500 people, 1 apartment. Have you calculated your chances? The Netherlands is the most densely populated country in continental Europe. Small territory, growing population, not enough new construction. The housing shortage isn't temporary, it's structural, and the numbers are serious. Rent for a room in Amsterdam ranged from 1,500 to 1,800 euros per month in 2023. That's for a studio, often with a kitchen integrated into the living room, in a space that looks bigger on the floor plan than it actually is in real life. In smaller cities like Groningen or Eindhoven, you can find something decent for 900 to 1,200 euros, but in the big cities, the market is ruthless. And that's where the official housing system comes in. To apply to the housing corporations, you need 3 Dutch pay stubs, a local credit history, and documented employment status. Sounds reasonable, right? Until you remember that if you just arrived, you don't have any Dutch pay stubs. If you worked 5 years outside the Netherlands, that time doesn't show up in the local system. It doesn't exist, plain and simple. Without a BSN, you don't even show up on the form. So even if you're qualified, have savings, and a spotless record, on paper to the corporation, you look like a huge risk. There's more. Did your partner just start working? Great, but you need 3 pay stubs plus 3 months of waiting just to be able to apply. Not to get the place, just to be able to apply. And during all that time, you're paying for temporary housing, daycare, and everything else out of pocket. No subsidy, no discount. Because to access the subsidy, you need a BSN, which needs an address, which needs 3 pay stubs, which need time you don't have. The irony is so perfect, it's almost beautiful. How do you get out of this? Most immigrants who manage to find housing in the first few months do so through referrals. Someone who knows someone or an expat group that shares openings before they're officially listed. The informal market exists and works, but you need a network to access it. And there's a second option that seems obvious, but a lot of people overlook. Leaving the big cities. Amsterdam is beautiful, but Amsterdam is also way too expensive. Leiden, Groningen, Eindhoven, Sam are even better quality of life with a fraction of the stress. The train connects everything. You'll live 40 minutes from Amsterdam, pay half the rent, and have a forest 5 minutes from your house. In the big cities, greenery is just a potted plant in the window of an apartment you pay 1,800 euros a month for. The lesson every immigrant shares is always the same. Be realistic about location, flexible with space, and measure your patience in months, not weeks. Truly settling in takes, on average, 1 to 2 years. It's not failure, it's just the process. Now that you know how hard it is to find a roof over your head, let me show you how much it costs to keep it. Please sit down so you don't have a heart attack, and just hang in there a little longer because soon we'll get to the good part of summer and bikinis. I promise. Number 4, the bill that's gonna hurt. You know when you open the restaurant bill thinking it's going to be 60 reais and it's 320? Living in the Netherlands is kind of like that, every month. I'm going to give you the numbers straight, because beating around the bush won't help anyone here. To live with a reasonable level of comfort in the Netherlands, you need between 2,500 and 3,000 euros net per month. Not luxury, not traveling every weekend, just the basic comfort of a civilized adult. The average Dutch salary is 44,000 euros per year, gross, with income tax around 35%. And look, there's also a water tax, a garbage tax, yes. There really is a garbage tax, and it shows up in your mailbox with an annoying frequency. You end up with about 2,400 to 2,600 euros net per month. Do the math. I did. You're left with less than it seems, and we're talking about the country's average salary. But the number that really makes people curse is the cost of daycare. For a family with a young child, both adults working, full-time daycare can cost up to 2,000 euros a month. In the more affordable range, 2 days a week, it's 1,100 euros. In many cases, daycare costs more than rent. Daycare costs more than rent. Daycare costs more than rent. Is there a government subsidy for this? There is, but you need a BSN, a permanent address, and proof of formal employment to access it. All things you're still trying to get. Until you have those, it's out of pocket, full price every month. The rest of the main costs, mandatory health insurance, is about 130 euros a month, and dental isn't included, it's a separate expense. Public transportation, about 100 to 120 euros per month. Groceries for one person, between 50 and 70 euros per week at discount chains like Lidl and Aldi. Eating out, 15 to 25 euros per person at a regular restaurant. It's not a habit, it's a special occasion. Fiber internet, 40 euros per month. At least that one doesn't hurt. But how do the Dutch manage to live well like this? Good question. They have a genuinely smart way of looking at leisure. There's a concept called gezelligheid. There's no direct translation, but it's something like that special quality of cozy togetherness. Getting together at home, good conversation, simple food. That's their standard way to relax. There's the borrel, the tradition of gathering friends at home to have drinks and some snacks. No partying, no crazy bill at the end. It works, it's genuinely good, and there's real work-life balance, not just HR talk. A month of vacation without guilt, no one calling you, no urgent emails from your boss, and working overtime as a rule is frowned upon. Burnout is taken seriously as a public health issue. Parental leave is actually generous. It's an expensive country, but you get quality in return when you manage to get into the system's bubble. The problem is the cultural price you pay. That one doesn't come in euros, and it's what catches people most off guard. Number 5. Direct, punctual, and busy. When was the last time someone you barely know looked at you and, without any ceremony, told you your hair looked weird? Or that you had sleep in your eye? In the Netherlands, that's just an ordinary day. The Dutch are among the most direct people in the world. It's not rudeness, that's just how they are. If your idea is bad, they'll say so. If your work is below expectations, they'll tell you. If you have spinach in your teeth during a meeting, they'll let you know right in the middle of the meeting. And if you invite them to your birthday, they'll just say no. No excuses needed. No beating around the bush, no diplomatic version for you to figure out later. For those coming from Brazil, where all sí means no, it looks great means it's okay, and let's keep in touch means never again. The initial reaction is shock. Then it turns into release. You stop wasting energy trying to read between the lines. The conversation is exactly what it seems, period. It's almost therapeutic after a lifetime of Brazilian subtext. And their scale of compliments is a work of art. If a Dutch person says your work is not bad, that's practically a standing ovation. If they say your Dutch is pretty good, you're probably already fluent. Every word carries exactly the weight it should. No compliment inflation. Now punctuality. Meeting at 3 o'clock. The Dutch person is there at 2:45. Some people even show up at 2:30. It's not anxiety, it's respect. Being late just isn't something that happens. It's a statement that the other person's time doesn't matter. There's no room for traffic excuses. But the weirdest culture shock, and that's saying something here, is the calendar. Imagine it's January now. You text your Dutch friend, hey, want to meet up next week? The real answer you actually get? How about March 22nd? It's not sarcasm, that's just their schedule. Dutch weekends are planned out months in advance. Social plans work like corporate meetings. Date, time, place, confirmed. There's no room for spontaneity. There's not a single Friday night left open for a last-minute hangout. Everything's already booked. For people who come from cultures where making plans 2 weeks ahead is already considered super organized, this is a shock that doesn't go away quickly. You have to get with their system or you'll never see anyone. And speaking of seeing people, there's something about friendship that almost nobody talks about, honestly. Making real Dutch friends is hard. Not because they're mean, but because their friendships are built from childhood. People grow up together, go to school together, and get married within groups that have known each other for 20 years. That circle is closed and comfortable. There's no natural space for an outsider to get in. And even those who speak English well prefer Dutch in intimate moments, where humor works, where irony comes out, where real connection happens. In English, it always stays a bit more superficial. The result, immigrants, even after years of living there, describe the feeling of being one step outside, present, but not fully belonging. That weighs on you. The solution? Expat communities, interest groups, and accepting that truly belonging takes years. Oh, and one last thing about the Dutch that's both fascinating and strange. The windows. The houses have huge windows, and they rarely close the curtains. You walk down the street and see entire living rooms, people having dinner, families watching TV, all visible from the sidewalk. It's a goldmine for nosy neighbors, right? It's not carelessness, it's a philosophy. It's I have nothing to hide as an explicit and practiced cultural value. But the same people who leave their windows open to the world can take months to invite you inside their home. An open window isn't an invitation. It's a statement of character, beautiful and strange at the same time. Basically the summary of the whole Netherlands. 6. Winter, bikinis, and Tylenol. Now, the part that makes a lot of people buy a ticket home earlier than planned, the Dutch winter. From November to March, it rains almost every day. The sky turns gray, and not that pretty gray you see on the cover of a European novel. A heavy, low, constant gray, the kind that makes it feel like the sun has personally given up on you. The sun rises at 8 in the morning and sets at 4 in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the few hours of daylight you get are spent inside an office. For people coming from northeastern Brazil, where sunshine is the norm and the beaches are warm, this isn't just physical discomfort. It really affects your mental health. It even has a medical name, seasonal affective disorder. In the Netherlands, it's treated as a public health issue, not as some whim of people who didn't know how to pick a country. November and December are the worst. No sunlight, Christmas coming up far from your family, and that homesickness that knows exactly when to show up, when it's cold, dark, and you're alone. And this but's important, let me tell you about the summer, because without this part, the story just wouldn't be fair, you know? When summer arrives in the Netherlands, it feels like the whole country has just been released from a 6-month prison. People hit the streets like the sun might be illegal tomorrow. Parks are packed at 9 p.m., with daylight still to spare. Music festivals everywhere. Techno in Amsterdam, jazz in Rotterdam, outdoor festivals in tiny towns you never even knew existed. It's a collective party that lasts as long as the weather allows. And the parks deserve a special mention. They'll be walking through any random park on a sunny afternoon and there are bikinis everywhere. Women sunbathing is naturally as if they were in their own backyard. No drama, no judgment. Because for them, that's exactly what it is. The park is the city's collective backyard. Every ray of sunshine after 4 months of gray is sacred, and no one's gonna waste it by wearing extra clothes. It's simply practical, so typically Dutch. And then there's Koningsdag, King's Day, every April 27th. You have to experience it at least once. The whole country turns orange. Literally. Orange clothes, orange accessories, face paint. Amsterdam's canals get so packed with decorated boats and people dancing that they look like floating dance floors. There are flea markets on every corner, and the Dutch, who love a good bargain, take it very seriously. Organized chaos, the Dutch paradox in holiday form, totally worth it. The veteran strategy for winter, vitamin D every day. Everyone who lives there agrees on this. And there are people who just leave the country in November, go somewhere sunny, and come back in January. It's not a luxury, it's a documented mental health strategy. And what about the healthcare system? Here's a surprise that catches pretty much every immigrant off guard. In emergencies, Dutch hospitals are excellent, fast, organized, competent, with a well-deserved reputation. The problem is day-to-day care. The system isn't preventative. Want to get routine blood work done? A general checkup? No serious symptoms, no tests. The general practitioner, the huisarts, is the gatekeeper for everything. Without a referral from them, you can't see a specialist, period. And to get that referral, you have to convince them you're genuinely sick. And what if your conviction isn't enough? Paracetamol. This medicine has become an inside joke among immigrants. Headache? Paracetamol. Back pain for 2 weeks? Paracetamol and wait a little longer. Strange and persistent symptoms? Paracetamol, stay hydrated, and come back in 15 days if it doesn't get better. There are people who got sick several times in just a few months, called the doctor, described every symptom in detail, and were sent back home without an appointment because according to the system's protocol, it wasn't serious enough. The person knows something's wrong, but the system politely disagrees. That doesn't mean the whole system's bad. It means it was built differently. Reactive, not preventative. Adapting requires a change in expectations, which, when you're already dealing with bureaucracy, the cold, and homesickness, isn't easy. But there's a secret that the veterans keep. People who stay in the Netherlands for more than 2 years rarely talk about leaving. Maybe it's the feeling of safety when walking around the cities at night without any tension. Violent crime is genuinely rare. The biggest real danger is getting hit by a bike on a bike path where you stopped without noticing. Maybe it's true freedom. 180 nationalities in Amsterdam. Being different is so common that it becomes invisible. Maybe it's the quiet pride of someone who fought for something hard and made it, who survived the BSN maze, the first winter, the battle for an apartment, and is still standing. What everyone agrees on, it takes at least 2 years to go from just surviving to truly belonging. The first year is almost all about adapting. The second year starts to show you the real country. 7. Is it worth it? You know what's the problem with that question? Is it worth living in the Netherlands? It's the wrong question, because nobody asks if it's worth having kids, expecting an objective answer. Nobody asks if it's worth getting married, wanting a yes or no. Some questions already have the answer inside them, and this is one of those. If you've made it this far in the video, you already know everything. You know about the BSN, you know about the crazy expensive daycare, you know about the winter, you know about the doctor who just prescribes paracetamol, and even so, you're still here. That already says a lot about you. There are 2 types of people who research living in the Netherlands. The first type heard that it's organized, safe, with a good quality of life, and wants that, but when they find out what the process really costs, they disappear, stop researching, close the tab. They go on living well where they are, and that's okay. Seriously, it's okay. The second type hears all that, swallows hard, and asks, but how do I start? You're one of the 2, and only you know which one. What I can tell you is this. Everyone who went to the Netherlands and stayed went through a specific moment. A moment when they were tired, lost in bureaucracy, cold, with no friends around, asking themselves what they had done with their life, and they chose to stay anyway. Not because it was easy, but because they had decided that this was the place where they wanted to build something. That decision, that conscious choice to stay when everything tells you to go back, is what separates those who settle in from those who are just passing through. The Netherlands doesn't filter by resume, doesn't filter by money, it filters by stubbornness. So the right question isn't, is it worth it? The right question is, do you have enough stubbornness? Tell me in the comments, I want to know. If you made it this far, comment Netherlands so I can get to know my loyal subscribers. Oh, and if you want to see the unfiltered reality of other countries, check out this video that's showing up on the screen. Thanks everyone, and see you next time.